Yeah, the reason I say that is blah, 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 blah. So you see how I gave him a chance to respond? But then I also didn't leave it so long. Like, I didn't go, I'm going to say you're not from around here. Right? I don't leave it 5 minutes, right? I leave it long enough that it's clear, like I put some social pressure on, I expect a response. But then if he doesn't respond, I continue to assume the burden because it's kind of a cooperative effort, right? It's like, game is, here's another interesting model. Do you guys know the idea of, do you guys know what a zero-sum game is? Does anybody know what this is? A zero-sum? Okay. So I'll give you this as well. We'll go back to that page in a minute. So there's different types of games. There's, we'll start with a zero-sum game, because that's the easiest to go from, and then the others make sense. So a zero-sum game is like a basketball game or a game of chess or something like that, where for every winner, there's also a loser, right? So if you're playing a zero-sum game against someone, everything that's good for you is bad for them, period. Okay? That's it. Zero-sum game, for every winner, there is a loser. And there are aspects of game that are a little bit zero-sum in a way. It's like your frame is strong or her frame is strong and one frame wins and the other frame loses or whatever, right? So it does have zero-sum aspects to it. But if game is zero-sum, you're going to do very badly. If for you to win, she has to lose, you're not going to sleep with a whole lot of girls, all right? So the other types of games there's positive-sum games. Positive-sum game is something like a negotiation. So say, for example, that, say you and I are going to negotiate. And I really like hamburgers and you really like potatoes. And I have, 3 hamburgers and 3 potatoes. You have 3 hamburgers and 3 potatoes. And we negotiate. And you take all the potatoes, I take all the hamburgers. And we're both happier than we were at the start. That's what game should be like. It's a positive sum game, right? However, so that's where you got all the potatoes and I got all the hamburgers. That's a very positive sum. However, what if I negotiate a little bit better, and now I get all the hamburgers and 2 of the potatoes, and you just get 1 of the potatoes. You get your 3 plus 1 of my potatoes, right? So now it's still positive sum. You still got more potatoes than you had before, so you're still happy. But it's even more the zero-sum aspect of the game, the competitive aspect. I kind of won more than you did. Make sense? Everybody won, but I won more, right? So that's a positive-sum game where everybody wins. And then there's also negative-sum games where everybody loses. And technically, if you win enough, you could still win in a negative-sum game, but you just generally don't want to play those, okay? That's games where, like, for example, gambling, like poker, is a negative-sum game. The house takes a cut, so on average, all the players lose. But if you're a really good player, you can win enough to overcome the house cut. Right. But anyway, so game should be a positive sum game. Okay, it'd be a situation where everybody benefits, and then if you happen to benefit a little more, fine. But you're providing good things, you're providing value to everybody in life. Okay, where were we? All right, so back to this. So tactics of outer game. Number 1, talk louder. Number 2, statements, not questions. Number 3, leading. You have to lead, you have to take charge. Again, the girl won't lead. We'll get into that in a second when we talk about social conditioning. As if she leads, it makes her a slut. Also, though, leading conveys a lot of attractive qualities about you. If you're willing to take a lead, same as how talking louder, it conveys that you've had good social acceptance when you've talked louder. If you're willing to take a lead, it conveys you've had good social acceptance when you've taken the lead, right? When you've led in the past, things have gone well for you. So the very act of leading is high value, even if it's pointless, right? Even if it's just you're in the club and you're like, hey, let's go stand over here for a second. Hey, actually, let's go sit down. Even if it doesn't get you closer to anything, the fact that you are leading, the fact that you have a direction and you're being assertive actually makes you more attractive. Better yet, if you're leading towards an outcome, right? If you want to take a girl home, moving her closer to the door, moving her away from her friends where you can talk more intimately, these type of things are actually positive as well, right? So leading has tactical reasons as well, and that's another good reason to do it. But leading for its own sake is high value, right? Also, leading the conversation is high value. If you talk about the things you want to talk about, that's a high value thing. If you get sucked into talking about a bunch of things you don't care about because she was talking about them, that's a low value type of a frame, right? If she's talking about purses and handbags and you hate that shit and you're sitting there nodding your head and she can tell you're bored and just going along, you're losing value by the second, right? If on the other hand you interrupt that and say, actually, you know what's really interesting, and throw in some stuff you actually care about, now you're leading, and that active leading, that active decision and initiative actually will be attractive. Because again, it's an alpha male quality. Right? In a tribal situation, you don't lead if you're a beta because you'll get like smacked down. So the very fact that you're willing to lead conveys a lot of positive qualities. Next one we talked about this a little bit. Frame and frame control. Okay, so frame and frame control. Frame, basically, I kind of used the term before, but I didn't really define it. Frame is the viewpoint that controls the meaning of events. Okay, so if you look at things through different viewpoints, their meaning has changed. Frame comes from the science of neurolinguistic programming. And here's a classic example to illustrate frame from that science. So let's say you're driving down the street and an ambulance cuts you off in traffic, blaring siren, you have to stop, and it's inconvenienced you ever so slightly. Are you like pissed off at the ambulance? Probably not. For the most part, people aren't really pissed. They understand like it's doing its job, saving lives, it's what it's supposed to do, whatever. People may be like mildly annoyed, but no big deal, right? Let's say now, behind that ambulance, there's like a bright red sports car weaving through traffic, cutting behind the ambulance that like cuts you off as it goes through. How do you feel about the guy in the sports car? Fuck the sports car, asshole, etc. Okay. So you just got cut off just as much, but because it's the sports car instead of the ambulance, now you're pissed off, right? Because you're framing it in a different way, right? You're not framing it as he's doing it, you're framing it as, oh, he's taking advantage of the situation, what a scumbag, what an asshole. Also, like, because it's the red sports car, like, fucking elitist, whatever, right? All right, now, what if you somehow knew that inside the ambulance is his, like, pregnant wife who's having a complication, and he wants to be there by his side when she gets, or by her side when she gets to the hospital to care for his wife? How would you feel about him then?
Dedicated.
Sports car's okay, right? So now all of a sudden you've changed the viewpoint through which you're seeing the events, so the events themselves have changed their meaning for you. Okay, so that's what a frame is. Okay, and again, the frame around everything's important. If your frame in a pickup is, I've come here to manipulate you and fuck you and give nothing in return, the girl's probably not going to like that very much, right? But if your frame is, I want to meet you, I think we have a good time together, and you know, regardless, it'll be fun finding out, that's a much more acceptable frame to the girl, right? Or if the frame, if you want to go more arrogant, is, hi, I'm here to enhance your life through my presence, right? If she accepts that frame, that's a very positive, good frame for you, okay? And there are some frames that are positive, some frames that are negative. And we'll talk a lot, especially tomorrow and at the end of today, about what those frames are that are positive. But the big thing is to have some control over the frame and to not get into the bad frames, not to get into the frames that aren't helping your cause, and to put yourself in the ones that are. Final thing about frame control itself is if someone knows they're being frame controlled, they don't like it. So if you're gonna do frame control right, it has to be subtle. The nature of frame control is it has to be subtle. All right. It's like if an ad came on TV and the ad said, your life is shit and I want to sell you stuff, so I'm gonna convince you you're like an awful person so that you buy my product, so now buy my product. Would anybody buy that? No. It's because like the frame control is being put in your face. It's like, I'm trying to frame control you, it's very obvious, it's manipulative, nobody wants to be manipulated, right? However, if on the other hand, it's a really cool, interesting, funny commercial with these beautiful people in a scenic location, and you're kind of looking at it and thinking, oh, I wish I was them, and then there's a product in the commercial, you might be swayed to maybe view that product in a better light, right? But in that case, the frame control is very subtle, right? It's not this in-your-face, like, I'm manipulating you frame control. It's done in a way that is amusing, humorous, maybe artistic, you have a positive association with it, a positive experience of, but it still gets the message across, okay? Similarly, when you talk to a girl, your frame control should be that. So a lot of times when you are communicating these frames of like higher value or of man to woman, if you do it in a flirtatious way, in a joking way, in a lighthearted way, as opposed to in a judgmental way or a serious way or a logical way, you're going to do much, much, much better, right? Specifically, there's a reason why when the girl gives you a shit test, you don't respond to it logically. Because responding logically is like manipulative frame control, right? If a girl's like, is that your pickup line? And you go, actually, looking at it logically, you should be happy that I'm picking you up, because the fact that men do pick you up illustrates that, you know, you're still an attractive girl. And in like 10 or 20 years, guys probably won't pick you up as much, and that'll be a sad day for you. So you should actually be really happy that I came and talked to you. Right? Now, that might logically kind of hold weight. Do you think that's going to get a really good response from the girl? Probably not.
If you did it in a joke, manner, though.
Maybe. Yeah, if you could do it as a joke, or if yeah, exactly. But if you do it in that logical, didactic way, she'll be like, yeah, you're probably right. You're also an asshole and I don't like you. Bye. Right?
Doing it playfully.
It'd be hard to do all that in one playful sentence. But if she's like, is that your pickup line? You'd be like, in this case, I suppose it was, yeah. Right? Or if she says that your pickup line, but whoa, pickup, let's slow down. Let's start with conversation. We can get the feelings involved later. I want to get to know you first. Right? That kind of stuff. Right? That's like a classic kind of a way. But it's this sort of like playful, don't care kind of thing. Right? Or like, oh, pickup line. Wow, you move fast, girl. All right. Well, I'm glad you like me. Let's start with names. I'm Todd. Right? And you just through it. So that's a more playful, less like upfront in your face way. Okay? But if you're trying to answer these things logically, if you're trying to assert your frame too strongly, it just comes across as manipulative and it's no good. So understand, frame's important, but the way you control it is equally important. If you're controlling it too obviously and it comes off manipulative, that's actually almost worse than having a bad frame. Finally, let's talk about the most common technical tactics in game, which are these. Push, pull. Disqualification. Okay. Push, pull, and disqualification. Push-pull, basically, is where you give a compliment and then take it away within a very short period of time. For example, if I was like, I love that shirt, but just a little too try-hard, man. I don't know, right? So the positive is I love the shirt, the negative is a little try-hard. Like, you have the weirdest expression on your face right now, but you're clearly trying to learn, so I respect that, right? Negative, but a positive. So that's a push-pull, right? Or with girls, you know, there's something about you that I love, but there's something about you that I fucking totally hate as well. I don't know. I don't know what to think about you, right? That's a push-pull, okay? And these kind of statements are good for a number of different reasons. Disqualification has similar elements, but let's talk about push-pull first. What is push-pull all about? Okay, so let's do this. Let's call this the normal range of experience right here. And I'm going to ask you guys a question to kind of illustrate this. How many people remember their drive here? Okay. How many people remember it really vividly and exactly? Maybe kind of a little bit. Okay, cool. How many people remember their drive to work or school or wherever they go on a regular basis today? Even fewer. Okay? Now, we were all present for that. We all had our attention on it enough to not crash, right? But why is it that we don't remember it? It's because it's a very normal experience. It doesn't stand out for us, right? And a lot of the experience, in fact, most of the experiences in our life fall into that normal range of experience. How many people remember your first day of the job that you're at right now? Or remember some things about it? Cool. How many people remember what they did at work last Tuesday?